The impact of climate change reaches far beyond rising temperatures and extreme weather. It is increasingly shaping how our food is produced, how much it costs, and who is able to access nutritious food. I'm your host, Mahin, and today on Front Seat to Climate Change, we're looking at the growing connection between climate change, agriculture, food security, and nutrition. For a country like Pakistan, where malnutrition and childhood stunting are already major challenges, floods, heat waves, agriculture patterns are putting even greater pressure on our food system. So, what happens when crops survive but nutrition does not? And as climate change reshapes agriculture, how do we make sure that food security is not just about having enough food, but having access to the right food? To discuss this today, I'm joined today by Professor Dr. Babar Shahbaz, Director at the University of Agriculture Faisalabad, who brings extensive expertise in agriculture, food systems, and rural development. Hello, Babar Saab. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Mahin, for having me.
Thank you, and we really appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation with us. Let's start with the bigger picture because what we're seeing in Pakistan is part of a much, wider global challenge. Around the world, climate change is beginning to really reshape food systems from drought affecting food production in East Africa to extreme heat and water stress, disrupting agriculture across South Asia. What do these global experiences tell us about future of food and nutrition in a warming world?
Yeah, thank you. This is in fact a very, very important question at how climate change tells us about the future of food and nutrition. And in fact, the aspect of food and nutrition and linking it with climate change is somewhat not very much in the dominant discourse around the climate change adaptation and policy issues. The global experiences tell us that climate change is no longer simply an environmental issue. It is increasingly becoming a food system and nutrition issue. And in fact, if we talk about Pakistan, before directly responding to answer, if we see the reality check of food system of Pakistan, the food system of Pakistan is basically sort of cereal dominant. We are producing about 55 million ton of cereals, and out of which the wheat, rice, maize, these are the major cereals, and we are the net exporter of rice. We are producing 30 million tons of wheat, which is almost sufficient to meet the domestic needs, and we are also doing good in maize. But on the other hand, if we link this cereal production or agriculture production with the nutrition indicator are some of the worst in the region. For example, in Global Hunger Index, we are at 106 out of 123 countries. 40% or more population is moderately or severely food insecure, and this is highest in South Asia. Around 40% of children under 5 are stunted, and again, this is highest in South Asia. So recently, FAO has released the state of food insecurity, and according to that, the 60% of population of Pakistan cannot afford healthy diet, and again, this is highest in South Asia. And also, the prevalence of anemia among women is highest, and obesity, diabetes, macronutrient deficiencies, these are all very alarming and highest in the region. So you talk about the global experiences. So we are seeing the three interconnected effects globally. The climate shocks are reducing the reliability of food production because of the floods and heat stress and other pests and diseases prevalent. And these shocks are disturbing the food supply chain, so the food becomes expensive, more costly, and the household, the marginal poor household, they have to compromise over the calories, over the quality and diversity of food. So climate change is directly affecting the whole food system and affect the food chain, and ultimately is affecting the nutrition and diet diversity of the population.
Absolutely, and I think what's particularly concerning is that these impacts do not remain confined to farms or agriculture production, when harvests, decline or become less predictable, the effects, like you mentioned as well, they travel through entire food productions, influencing supply, prices, and ultimately what families actually put on their plates. And that brings us specifically to Pakistan as well. And Pakistan has repeatedly suffered, floods, heat waves, and periods of droughts in recent years as well. So beyond the immediate loss in crops, how are these climate shocks changing what affected communities can actually afford, access, and eat?
In fact, the most important point is that impact does not end when the flood water reduces or heat wave ends. In fact, the impact of these floods and heat waves and other climate-related shocks goes beyond their duration. A flood, for example, can destroy the crop of the farmers, the livestock, their home, the stored food and seeds, the income source, the roads and markets are damaged. So the household therefore losses both food availability and purchasing power whenever there is climate-related shock happen. So when the food prices rises, the household income falls, and the families tend to make sort of difficult choices. They have to reduce. They have to reduce the number of meals. They have to purchase the cheaper and less nutritious food. They have to, in fact, uh, fill their stomach through by say that empty calories with the less or less nutritious food. So the climate shocks can cause transition from food insecurity to dietary or nutrition insecurity. So this is what is happening, and in fact, this is not very much a talking point in the global discourse. We are talking about the food production, food availability, but what is happening to the nutrition and food diversity? This should be a dominant force.
ACT Pakistan, Advocating Change Together, a Dawn Media initiative.